Okay, now on to the stuff we watched, because this is the stuff we talked about last week that we were going to watch because it was getting released. And now we're going to talk about it this week because we've now gone out to watch it. And now I said I was going off Tubi and I wanted to watch something else that was I wanted to go back to indie horror. And I picked The Mutation,
Yeah.
which where did I watch? It was on Amazon. Amazon had The Mutation. So I think you can find it on Prime there. Um, so this is actually, now you and I both commented before that now this name is popping up on low budget stuff. It was done by Uncorked Pictures,
Yeah.
or Uncorked, and both you and I noted as soon as you see that Uncorked, you're like, oh, here comes a micro horror. And that's not
Yeah.
and that's not to say it's bad, because I love micro horror and there's a lot of good micro horror out there. But it's funny that I guess they have a name. I'd like to do more research into Uncorked.
Yeah, what I've noticed about them is that they do seem to have kind of like some little bit more unique ideas, but they're usually like pretty low budget, like when you call it. But at least they try and do like different spins on stuff. But when you watch it, you're gonna be watching something low budget, not like as micro as like Brain Damage or anything, but you're gonna be definitely be watching something between the micro and ultra low budget range. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, which is another one. And I also wonder if they're actually, they must actually be financing them and doing them themselves. I mean, and if they're doing multiple ones, because I've seen the name multiple times, clearly there's a market for this and they're making money. Anyhow, let's talk about the film itself. Now, there's two things I noticed right off the bat with this. Obviously, yeah, again, micro budget. And if you are a micro budget filmmaker, it's a good one to watch just because, it's another micro film. There's two things that stood out pretty quickly to me. One, I loved the overuse of the smoke machine.
Yes, absolutely. Low budget fog is always awesome. Like,
well, I remember actually like making when we were making films like out of college and stuff, and you'd got your hands on a smoke machine. Like I remember it looks awesome inside, and they did some examples of this where they fill a dark room with smoke, and you have blue light and stuff coming in, and it kind of creates that James Cameron kind of light type of look. But then it's funny, you're kind of like, fuck it, I have a smoke machine. Where else can I use the smoke machine?
Yeah.
And it was literally the entire first 20 to 30 minutes of the film just was like the smoke machine was in every single shot.
Yeah. People get like pissed off when you use it too, because they start like coughing and everything. It totally fills up the room right away. But that was like my favorite toy, next to like any kind of like severed limbs that I could find, or not real ones, of course. Well, but next to any kind of fake low budget props, eyeballs, severed heads, and stuff. The fog machine is in my top. The fog machine
was great. It was awesome because they had a couple of scenes where he goes into the basement and I think outside, and it all made sense and it looks really high budget. But then there was the scene where he's talking to his wife in the kitchen and they filled it with smoke. And you can see her, she's sitting there talking to him, and there's just smoke swirling around. It was like, is the something on fire on the stove, or so that was the first thing I noticed. But hey, I love it because they did a couple of shots with it and it looked awesome. And I was just like, it's fucking rad. The other thing that I found was hilarious was that it's about a huge mutated rat. So there's a scientist who has developed something. They didn't really get too deep into it, but he's done something that basically, I don't know, mutates rats. And they kind of open, but we don't actually see the mutation. We just kind of opened in the first few minutes with a massive rat in a cage. And of course, that massive rat is really a guy kind of in a gorilla suit.
Right. Yeah. I think it's fucking awesome. Like, at first I was disappointed because I wanted to see a puppet, right? I was like, if it's a movie about a mutated rat, I'm going to see a giant puppet. This is going to be cool. But it was a guy in a puppet suit. But I was like, this guy is in like a suit, like he's wearing like out of the 50s or something. This is fucking awesome. And they are shamelessly exploiting it constantly. They don't even bother like trying to show flashes of it or anything. They're like, this is our guy in our monster suit going through the entire fucking movie.
Like literally, it wasn't in the darkness hiding him in the background. It was like there was shots of him pumping gas, just waiting for the bus. Like, it was
great. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome because they just shamelessly just threw him in as many scenes as possible. Now, the other one I will say to this, there were some pretty awesome practical gore effects that they used too, and I thought someone on the crew or set or the filmmaker, because it's written, directed, and produced by the same guy. What's his name? I have it here. Yeah, Scott Jeffrey was the writer, director, and producer of it. But there was a couple of awesome effects, like when the rat thing at the beginning mauls the scientist and they kind of reveal it. I was like, oh, someone took their time on that. That's pretty good gore effects there. So yeah, it was exactly what you want to see in a low budget indie horror that of this budget range. I thought it was good. Got to go check it out.
Yeah, some of the gore effects were cool, and also I was laughing at like the cheesy like rat attacks too, because he would like just jump up and kind of like pose, and then like when he attacked people, he would sort of paw at their face like a cat does, and then you would see where he had like some of like the fingers that are kind of like, you can tell it's like the prosthetic that's kind of longer, so they're kind of flopping a little bit as he's pawing at somebody. Anyways, that was great. Now there's not a lot like really that makes this movie like, what was bizarre about this movie is it starts right away with the killer rat. And then I was like, great, they're not wasting any time. He's attacking somebody. And so, but then like once they get into the plot, and they kind of like weave the rat in here and there, but then the plot just sort of goes into, I'm a cop and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm trying to get past my like personal pain that I've had. And then there's a guy that's like a zoologist going after the rat, everybody, but it's like the total like generic like cop tropes in there. There's a lot of like kind of like sitting around and talking, but for that guy in that monster suit running around attacking people throughout the entire movie, that's some pretty good drunk entertainment right there.
Oh yeah, I would definitely worth checking out. So now, what did you watch? Which was yours?
I watched The Night Watchman, and this movie it's sort of like, it's about these guys that are like security guards in this office space, and so it has a little bit of like an office space element. But then there's a clown that dies in Romania, but he gets of course like this vampire virus before he dies in Romania. So all the other clowns that are part of his like carnival troupe, they get shipped to the States for some reason. And then the security guards, they get the wrong shipment in there, so they're going to watch it. So the guys that bring it in, they're like, oh, crap, we brought it to the wrong place. And one of the security guards is like, oh, why don't you give me some of that weed that you usually give when you bribe us? So they gives them a bunch of weed. And then they're babysitting this like coffin of this vampire clown. So of course the clown gets out, starts slaughtering all these people. Then a bunch of other zombies, including like vampire zombie clowns as part of the troupe, and then other vampire people attack people once were people, now vampires attacking, and the security guards with all their like clerks dialogue in there and their sort of office space interaction then band together to defeat the vampires. But it's actually a ton of fun, and it's really funny all the way through, very entertaining. This is, I think, is like one now think about like the Mutation is like, so it's got those great like monster scenes that you watch, but like the plot in between just sort of stalls because nothing really like forwards it at all, because it already happens at the very beginning. Mutated rat, we just got to stop them throughout the rest of the
we've let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah. So, but in this one, it's like constant action. They spend a lot of, there's quite a few people that attack them. There's quite a few vampires that attack them in there, and kind of like they use like the one setting, but they use it wisely to make it look like they have quite a bit of space, because it is kind of like they have a warehouse section that the guards are in, and then they also have the office space area to it. So they have quite a bit of space to cover for a bunch of like attack scenes. And then they do some like fun A-team scenes and everything else like that. But it's just a really cool, enjoyable, funny horror movie.
And what's good about it too is it does in a way spin the wheel of Tubi, as we like to say, because they're like, okay, how many different villains are out there?
Yeah,
you got this. It's like, well, let's just spin the wheel, and the first three that come up, we'll mash them. We'll mash them into one.
That's a good point.
Into one character. Like, okay, what's the first one? We got clowns. Great. Okay, what's the next one? It's vampires.
Yeah,
and zombies. Okay, let's make that into one big sort of, that's one creature now. So what I like about this is the fact that it's basically they mash together vampires, clowns, and zombies and put them all together. And I think it's you can learn a lesson there. Just find three tropes out there, whatever they are, mash them together, and come up with a loose plot that makes it make sense.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And you're absolutely right about that, because there's even one part of the movie where one of the characters gets confused about what they are. He's like, are these zombies or are these vampires? Are they like some new sort of species? Are they like zompires, some kind of new monster? Yeah. But I thought that was kind of funny, because that's basically like exactly what the audience is thinking.
Yeah, it's actually what the audience is thinking. But I like the idea. It's like, they've never made like a werewolf clown movie. Like, done. Let's make a werewolf clown movie. So anyhow, now my dog's going bonkers. Can you hear that?
Yeah, your dog was Cujo. Just got like that rabies virus from beating that bat, right?
Okay.
So you better be careful.
Yeah. All right. So now, very quickly, to end this all off, we're going to get to what's on our radar for next week, what's being released. Now, I've decided that I'm going to go with an old school movie that's just getting a re-release on Shudder. I think it's on Shudder. It's getting the re-release, and that is The Town That Dreaded Sundown. The Town That Dreaded Sundown came out in 1976. It was kind of like at the time, it was like kind of a big slasher movie that came out. It was loosely based on a true story. And what It's been years since I've seen it, but the reason I'm going to rewatch it is because if you remember in college, my senior film was a short horror film called The Town That Dreaded Some Clown.
Yes.
So as soon as I saw this, I was like, well, that's a good reference. I am going to rewatch this and going to relive why I made The Town That Dreaded Some Clown based off The Town That Dreaded Sundown. But for those who are interested in, I mean, it's a horror. It's an iconic horror film that I think everyone kind of references and knows that probably doesn't get a lot of play. So it's a 1976 horror, Town That Dreaded Sundown. It's going to be showing up on Shudder this weekend. That's going to be the one I'm going to check out.
Excellent. So the movie that I'll be checking out is there's a movie that's coming to Tubi, and you and I were talking about it right before we recorded, is the Adam Rifkin movie Director's Cut that Penn Jillette is in.
Yes.
So I've heard a lot of good stuff about this one. Haven't seen it yet. I'm excited to check this one out.
Yeah, and it's one that I've read about, heard about, but it's cool that's now coming out. Like sometimes these movies get buried. I think it's actually from like 2018, 2017, something like that. And sometimes they get buried. They get like a weird indie release, but they pop up again. And this is one that I remember. And as soon as I said, hey, this is coming out this week, it's going to be a good one. So
yeah, Rifkin's really cool. He's been like mainstream, and he's also been on the fringes throughout his entire career. Yeah. I'm a big fan of The Dark Backward. Have you ever seen that one with Bill Paxton? That's a really cool movie. I'll see if I can find that for you. It's got to be on some platforms. That's another one of his that I like quite a bit. Oh, Detroit Rock City. That's a fantastic movie. Yeah. Then he did that movie with Burt Reynolds, the last movie that Burt Reynolds was in. It was a total tribute to him. If you ever saw that one.
No, I don't remember.
But yeah, this is good. I think this is supposed to be like one of those kind of sort of like a lot of long takes and kind of like in the moment, like as it's happening kind of movie, like a found footage type of thing with director's cut. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. No, I as soon as I saw it, I was like, I remember this coming out, but I never had a chance to see it. So yeah, I'm going to be checking that one out. All right, so those are the two that are on our radar for this upcoming week, and we'll be checking out that are getting new releases. So we're both kind of checking out older films that are now seeing the light again. Mine's from 1976. Yours is from about 2018. So we will be back next week to report on those and other stuff that we find in the news. Anything else to report?
Oh, that's it for now. Oh, actually, well, next week I'll sort of recap about the Batman experience, and then I'll see like what the price difference is. I've been hearing it's about almost $2 more than any other movie in the theater right now.
Well, it'll be interesting to hear about that too. All right, cool. And then until next week.
Okay, until next week.